announcement who made it. That's so based. Okay. Yes. Where was I? Yes. Let's just wait for more people to come. We're gonna start. It's gonna be based. Okay. Bets are open. Yes. You are
Where's
allowed
Dio,
to
though?
bet. And yes, we need to wait for Dio. Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone integrated. Oh, we need to edit the. Let me just do one thing, please. Yeah. Oh, it was already edited. That's good. Okay. Am I needed there? Yes, you are not needed there. Don't worry about it. Okay, so make sure how to bet. This is how to bet. Okay. But instead of this person, it's DiCaprio. Okay. This is how to bet. You can bet your CC coins and you get double if you win. Okay. If your candidate wins. And these are the rules. Let's just wait for Dio to come. Hello for everyone who's joining right now. We're gonna have the debate tournament starting in a little bit, okay? Based. Let's see where Dio is. Who is?
Balancy. Check water cooler real quick.
No.
Oh.
Don't worry about it. Yeah. Hello. Yes. Hello. hello. لحظة 1 second. Okay. Dio. Okay, he's here. So.
Hello, everybody.
I am spamming his DMs right now. Okay, based.
Dio?
Yes.
Scream at him?
Yes. Based. Okay, he's coming. That's good.
Look,
Is it his
I was about
name?
to say.
Yes.
I'll debate Zonia on anything if Dio doesn't show up.
Yes. You. Oh no. Oh no. We are not in business to do that.
Pineapple on pizza. Affirmative.
I love pineapple on pizza.
Pineapple on pizza is great.
Wait, I have to be the neg to
Pineapple on pizza is based.
I put pineapple and mushrooms on my pizza.
Yeah, I think that's good.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I will talk about that too. Don't worry about it. Let's just wait for Dio. Hello, Dio.
Dio's here.
Dio's here.
They just talk.
Nice. Hello. Okay. I didn't know. Okay. All right. So let's see. Okay, let's start this.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. This is Balancy. Let me just get the recording thing too. Zonia, tell me when you're recording too, okay?
I am recording already.
Okay, based. All right. Amazing. So let's start. Hello, everyone. This is Balancy. We are starting one of the last round of the debate tournament. For the first elimination round of the debate tournament. This is going to be very, very nice, very important, amazing topic. Okay, amazing people participating in it. On our corner or server is Dio. Hey Dio, how are you? And hello. And on the other is Zonia from Politics server. Yes.
Hello.
Hey Zonia. Wait, let me just make sure you guys are. Yeah, you can unmute yourself. Based. Okay, so yeah, that's basically it. Amazing. You guys can bet. If you don't know how to bet, it's in the pinned messages. Yeah. Before I start, there has been some 2 dropouts from the politics server, which is very unfortunate. I'm sad about it, but it is what it is. Okay, so we're gonna continue. Yeah. All right. So yeah, it is. Okay, let's continue. All right. So yes, I love you too, Sam. Okay, so what is it? All right, yeah. You guys can start. The affirmative can introduce themselves, and when they want to start, I'm gonna open the clock to stream it. Okay, and we can start. Okay. Online timer. Yes.
All right, time starts after introduction.
Yes.
Right.
Okay, so it's 5 minutes for minutes back and 5 minutes openers, 4 minutes back and forth, and 5 minutes closers. Okay. Can you
By the
guys
way,
see my
Dio,
screen?
we can hear you. We can hear you pinning.
Yes.
All right, it's coming up. Okay, I can see your screen now.
Okay, based. Both of you. Okay, so you can introduce yourself, and whenever you start your opener, I'm gonna start the timer. Also, the second opener, Sas here will be the second opener. You got the bets are off. Like when Dio finishes their opener, the bets are off. So the back and forth doesn't decide your bet. You know. Okay, so who's the affirmative here?
That would be me.
Amazing. Hey, Zonia. Okay, based. Okay, whenever you are ready, Zonia, go ahead. Okay.
All right. Hello, I'm Zonia, and thank you for being here, everyone. I appreciate that this academic exercise has been set up by the coordinators. It's a really cool thing to be a part of, and honestly, I'm just happy to actually have been picked for a team and be involved here. So I hope that everybody who's here gets to walk away with something intellectually stimulating today, and I'm sure I'll gain a lot out of this myself in terms of intellectual stimulation. So I'm ready to go.
Based. Okay, go ahead.
In May of 2020, 16 nations led by India and South Africa petitioned the WTO to temporarily suspend patent protections on COVID-related medicines, treatments, and technology under the concern that while high-income countries will have access to technology and medicines as they become available, developing and lower-income countries will continue to be overwhelmed by the virus and inexorably fall behind economically, infrastructurally, to the point of extreme crisis that would have long-lasting consequences. Over time, the proposal has gained support of more than 100 countries. Now, a year and a half later, about 77% of the total global doses of vaccine have been administered to people in high and upper middle income countries. Likewise, non-vaccine treatment and support of infection cases remain strong in wealthier countries, with COVID-related deaths being constrained, while lower income countries continue struggling to keep up with treatment, and their COVID-related death tolls experience far less constrained peaks. Enforcement of the WTO's patent protections, known as Trade-Related Aspects of Intellectual Property Rights, or TRIPS, is compulsory for all member nations. No individual member nation may waive patent protections of its own accord in order to provide more immediately accessible and affordable treatment to its own people, or to do so for another nation. The only way to waive these protections is to have consensus among the TRIPS Council. If any member nation formally disputes the waiver, there is no consensus, and thus the waiver cannot yet pass. And despite more than a year of deliberation, the waiver has yet to pass. Wealthier nations who are spearheading the development of treatments, vaccines, and technology to combat the virus have an economic obligation to their own pharmaceutical and health technology companies, and, as such, are often unwilling to allow the waiver to pass. And while the upper classes of lower income countries have largely afforded priority treatment and thrived while seeing an economic boom, the lower income communities of these countries have seen devastating effects that are likely to have reverberations for generations to come. The waiver on patent protections remains stalled on continuous dispute from higher income member nations. In the meantime, lower income countries, especially their own lower income communities, continue to have a bleak and uncertain future. We as nations are not islands that are wholly self-sufficient. In this modern age, we depend on resources from around the globe. The vast majority of those resources are produced by lower-income communities as laborers, and the vast majority of the material and chemical resources we depend on come from the land of lower-income countries. It is the lower-income communities of lower-income countries that are most severely affected by the WTO's IP patent protections. As a brief example, of the top 100 most economically affected countries, 39 of them are sub-Saharan African, land from which we acquire platinum, cobalt, gold, and copper, which are primary resources used in the making making of every aspect of technology that we live off of today. If we continue down this path, maintaining the strict patent protections on the intellectual property of medicines and medical technology, these communities will continue to be negatively impacted, and the length of time for them to recover from the impact will lengthen significantly. This will limit our ability to acquire the material and chemical resources we depend on, and as such, will almost certainly drive up costs on all upstream products and solutions that depend on those resources. This will negatively impact the lifestyles and well-being of people across the globe, even those in middle and upper income countries and communities. Reducing the WTO's patent protections on medicines and medical technology will greatly reduce both the severity and length of time of the impact, and this too will be the case with future pandemics and global medical crises. I therefore ask for a vote in the affirmative. I cede my time.
Nice. I'm gonna unmute Dio, whenever you're ready, go ahead.
So, in this debate, I'm just going to be focusing on basically one key major point, and that's that while it may seem in the short term that waiving vaccine and protection and intellectual property rights might seem well and good in the long term for this year or this pandemic. First of all, the vaccine waiver is only for a few months. It's relatively short, and the waiver to continue to stop other countries from allowing other vaccines is potentially going to hurt the development of future vaccines. It could hurt the development of future medicine. Intellectual property rights are key to the development of medical technology and other medical advancements in the world, and to just waive them arbitrarily every time a disaster comes around will not only decrease the incentive that many companies have in order to develop these vaccines, but also destabilize for other property rights that allow countries to negotiate and further develop medicinal technologies. If this were the other way around, if lower income countries had come up with the vaccine and higher income countries decided to waive the intellectual property rights, this would be an uproar from the lower income countries. They would say that this would be an injustice. And rightly so, because they spent a large amount of their money developing these vaccines. One other side point I would say is that lower and middle income countries aren't suffering as much as higher income countries in response to the COVID-19 virus. If we look at our populations, the higher income countries are mostly older. They're mostly susceptible to diseases like COVID-19, and they spent a lot more money in order to stop the virus and in order to develop medical technologies. It seems not only biased, but just not a proper, equally held standard to waive these vaccine protection laws, intellectual protection laws in regards to this particular vaccine. So I stand here saying that we should be hesitant with arbitrarily waiving intellectual property rights in response to what is an intermittent and temporary affair, that and that there are better alternatives. One thing I would also like to add is that the United States, a country that has largely developed these vaccines, is responsible for 2 out of the three major vaccines that are being offered, is one of the highest donors to the COVAX program. In fact, if we combined all the other countries involved in the COVAX program, the COVID-19 vaccine donation service, they would not gain even half of what the amount of vaccines that the United States has donated. So it's, while despite like the claim that this would vastly speed up the amount of vaccines that lower and middle income countries would have, it's kind of questionable. They don't quite have the technology to develop vaccines at a rapid pace. It doesn't seem like it's harming the United States and other countries that develop these vaccines from being able to give them or donate to them. This doesn't seem to be a problem. Instead, what the United States and other countries should do is increase the rate that they donate these vaccines and invest in countries that that will have these facilities. There's no need to arbitrarily waive intellectual property rights. That's all I have to say.
Yeah. Okay. Let's start off. Now, Zonia, we have 4 minutes. You can start the back and forth whenever you're ready. Okay.
All right, let's go. Okay, so my opponent brings up that the waiver is temporary. It's a 3-month waiver, and this is true. I don't see why this in particular would be a fitting argument in opposition to my position, but I think in a way it almost supports it. What I'm arguing for, what my affirmative position is that that the member nations of the World Trade Organization should reduce IP protections for medicines and medical technology, or for medicines in general. And the reduction doesn't necessarily mean the elimination of, it means the reduction of. So the reduction of these protections could be temporary. Overall, I think when it comes to these global crises, we should be reducing these protections at the times of these global crises. As mentioned earlier in my opening statement, we've seen a significant economic impact to countries that we all globally depend on, that if the longer that they are impacted and the more severely that they are impacted, the more that is going to drive up the prices for everybody around the globe in terms of just everyday living. So this is something that I think we need to be cognizant of, that a reduction of protections or temporary waivers in particular during times of crises are something that would be significantly beneficial to us in the long run in terms of reducing the length of time to recover from these crises and reducing the overall long-term economic impacts across the entire globe. My opponent also mentioned that IP protections being lifted will negatively impact vaccine development. And I don't see exactly how that would be the case. In general, the vaccine development is going to continue no matter what. As for how much an individual company is able to profit off of the intellectual property ownership of that vaccine, that's a different story. If you want to argue for the economic thriving of the individual pharmaceutical companies, then you would take that kind of an argument. But that is not what we are talking about here. What we are talking about is how do we reduce the overall long-term negative effects and economic impact across the globe from these various countries that are being decimated by the fact that they cannot get either the vaccines or the right equipment and care to deal with those who are infected. And my opponent also mentioned that the U.S. is a major contributor to the COVAX program and owns 2 of the 3 major vaccines that are currently offered. In that, what they should do is they should donate more to the COVAX program and invest more in these countries. Well, the problem is that you end up with a bleeding effect here. Well, one, you end up with a lack of guarantee. When it comes down to donating, it comes down to what individual countries feel they can donate at the time. And then when it comes to investing in other countries, you're talking about additional potential economic impact and GDP impact to the countries that invest, especially if those countries haven't had enough of the vaccine donated and haven't had enough equipment donated and are continuing to have their populations dwindle, and then the investment in the country overall is going to become a loss. I see my time.
Okay. Let me unmute. Dio, whenever you're ready, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. So, my opponent stated that this waiving the vaccine for waiving the or reducing the the amount of intellectual property protections is the right idea in a time of crisis. But I have to say it's exact opposite. The reason why vaccines are developed at a rapid pace is because there's a great incentive to hone in on something like a crisis. It's the entire reason why insurance companies exist. Insurance companies exist because in a time of crisis, they can help you out, right? And if there was no tragedies or no crisis, the insurance companies wouldn't exist, right? They're trying to level the field at which things happen so that they don't end up so terribly. In the same way, a pharmaceutical company, it makes money when people are in some sort of crisis, and when they're not, they don't make any money whatsoever. So they're kind of the opposite of the insurance. So if we have to think about it this way, if we kind of waive or reduce intellectual property protections every time a pharmaceutical company kind of expects to make its big bucks on the response that all of its investment that it put into something critical, or like research for future vaccines or vaccines in general, not just vaccines for a disease it's even aware of, but maybe just studying the general technology in the first place. Such investments, they're going to be hard to. You're going to have a hard time finding investors if they're like, well, once this disease does really come around, well, all the money that we kind of invested and we tried to put in, well, we're not going to really make that back because we know that the international community is just kind of going to take away most of the money that we would otherwise make there. So it's going to be a harder it's going to be harder to really respond to that in the boardroom, or like, hey, investors, please continue to invest in our company. We're guaranteed to make recoup all of our investments because of the amount of money that we made in research can be overturned while some crisis happens, and all these governments are going to give us the right amount of money. They're going to give us we can still be protected. There's not going to be other companies that can go and take what we make and just copy it. So these sorts of things that we're talking about, we're just talking about these people making money. Well, you have to think of it from the starting point. You can't just say, well, we're just thinking about these people making money. They're going to do it anyways without money. They're not, right? Or if they are, it's not going to be to the same extent. They're not going to do it. They're not going to take as much risk. So if we want to make sure that the risks balance with the reward is huge. A whole bunch of people not dying from diseases, it's a huge reward. If we want to properly make sure that we balance out the risks with the reward, we have to make sure that the valuation is equal, it's balanced. So when we're talking about it's not going to matter, right, is what you said, because the vaccines are going to be developed anyway. Well, not really great evidence for that. And even if that's the case, right, there's not good evidence that they would be invested into the same degree. And investments, or the amount of money that people are willing to put in, is going to be directly proportional to how many vaccines we're going to expect and how fast we're going to expect them. Next thing I want to talk about, I wanted to talk about. Yeah,
I'm sorry. Time.
Okay.
Right. Are you seeing my stream? Just to make sure.
I'm not seeing it.
Yeah, it's where the timer is. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Let me join it.
No worries. Uh-huh. All right. Okay. Uh, Zonia, you can go ahead whenever you're ready.
Okay, let's go. Crises motivate the development. This is sorry. My opponent stating that crises motivating the development of vaccines seems a little bit of a stretch, because we had vaccine development thriving as far back as the early 1900s, at least here in North America, particularly the U.S. and Canada, and the pharmaceutical industry that we know about today, the big for-profit, as we call big pharma industry, didn't become a thing until the late 1970s to early 1980s. So we had a good stretch of time there where we had the polio vaccine, the measles, mumps, and rubella vaccines. We had smallpox vaccines, all these things that came about during times of crises, when we were having our population severely impacted by these things. There were children who were dying from polio or becoming paralyzed from it, and we developed a vaccine to solve it. The vaccines always end up developing in a crisis as far back as our history with vaccines go. The pharmaceutical industry that we know of today is a newer thing that's come about over the past 40 years. Now, we are dependent upon it at this point, but that doesn't mean that if we take away some of their ability to profit off of the drugs, which isn't going to take away all of their ability to profit, they can still be the creators of the original solution, correct? But we taking away some of what they're able to profit off of is not going to stop or inhibit the production of drugs. If anything, it's going to boost the production of these drugs and these vaccines, because you have the more wealthy nations and their more well-funded industries that are able to spearhead the development of these things. But as soon as they get to a point where they've developed it and they do an initial sell-off, they can sell off the patent if we need to, like patent restrictions. They can sell off rights to it. There are various other things that you can do instead of them just locking it down and other nations having to honor the lockdown, which is what the problem is. So what they can do is they can make their initial profit off of it, and then it can be released into the wild where other countries can develop it. And so maybe they aren't able to then profit as much off of it in the long run. They still have their own version of it. We all know about generics and such. We all know about the aftermarket solutions that come. They will still have their own name brand product that they can market and that they can sell and that they can make profit off of. So this isn't something that is going to inhibit the development of vaccines. If anything, it would cause more vaccines to become available, because a broader range of countries will be freely able to use the patent or to use the patented process themselves and develop their own version of it. And since we've already seen the decimating effects with all these lower income countries, particularly with their lower income communities that, as mentioned in my opening, we all depend on, you will see them providing their own solutions that solve that. And likewise with having a hard time to get investors, because I'm sorry, I'm running out of time. I'll just cede my time at this point.
Okay.
Can I add something?
No, this is a debate, so no. Dio, whenever you're ready, go ahead.
I'm curious. You stated it was not going to inhibit or stop the growth. I was really talking about inhibiting the growth. So just because vaccines were developed in the past without intellectual property rights doesn't, and it's not exactly with, like, you pointed to smallpox and measles, mumps, and rubella, which actually did had some protections intellectually, and polio, which famously didn't, because they the polio vaccine was kind of given out for free. But these took much longer in terms of development than the COVID-19 vaccine. The speed at which, the rate at which the COVID-19 vaccine was incredible, and we can understand that these companies actually cooperated to develop this vaccine, knowing that they would still have intellectual property rights to protect them later on. This idea that, okay, well, you're just not going to inhibit whatsoever the rate at which vaccines are going to be deployed, because in the past there were vaccines that were deployed without these intellectual property rights, doesn't work. It doesn't work as a good argument. We're just seeing a faster pace at which we can expect vaccines to come out, and we are seeing vaccines developed at incredible rates that just didn't occur in the past. So if we really take the historical case, if we really take your historical argument, then this is even stronger in my point. We now have stronger intellectual property rights, and vaccines are being developed at like many times the rate that we saw before. Of course, I wouldn't say that's a particularly strong argument in the first place, because, well, we understand that there are a whole bunch of things that changed between now and the past. The world is quite different, very different technology, all sorts of things. So just saying that, okay, well, in the past we developed them without intellectual property rights, so now we can develop them at the same rate that we are, it just seems pretty suspect. One of the big reasons I would say that intellectual property rights probably contribute a lot to the development of these vaccines is something that you brought up, actually. Generics. It's hard to get generics off the ground because there isn't a lot of investment whatsoever in it. Compared to things that actually have investment, non-generics, brand drugs, get way more attention, developed at far faster speed, they're invested in like many more times. A lot of times when these property rights kind of drop off, a generic drug is hardly ever used. So like, if there is some sort of evidence that something contributes. Hello?
I'm sorry, I apologize. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Take
All
your
right.
time.
So if there is some evidence that IP contributes to the development of vaccines and medicinal technology, it's one of your own points that you brought up about generics. I'm going to add a point that's not related to this, to the IP specifically. Sorry, not the IP specifically. I mean, another point you raised. I think you really need evidence that we're actually going to see like a speed up in deployment and vaccine deployment, because from what I understand, what we really need is something like technology transfer. And what would facilitate something like technology transfer would be companies from the United States, from England, the UK, etc., Australia, develop vaccine. Come on, the guy kind of closed me off.
Go ahead. 5 seconds. Go ahead.
Okay, so would develop the vaccine in those countries. That's what we need. We need these countries to actually invest in develop facilities there, trusted facilities that really work. That's all I have to say.
Okay. Yeah. Go ahead. All right. We on second back and forth, right? Yeah. Who started the back and forth? It was Zonia.
Yeah.
So Zonia should be the one that ends the back and forth. I really need one more rebuttal, I think. So one more round of rebuttals. So Zonia, then Dio can rebuttal, then Zonia can go. Okay. I know this is gonna be a little bit longer because I feel like there is more to say. So we shall see. Then Zonia, so Zonia can go, and then Dio, and then Zonia can end the rebuttals. Go ahead.
Okay, so this is my rebuttal. Then we do one more with Dio, and then I close.
Yes, exactly, and then we start with the closing statements. Go ahead.
All right. Okay.
No,
so, go ahead. So, with Dio's claim that vaccine development in particularly with the measles and mumps vaccines back in the 60s, that they were much slower developed vaccines. I don't think that's a claim that we can use in this argument at this point in time, because we're in a completely different world in terms of the ability to develop, just because of how many different companies there are developing vaccines, how many different countries are contributing in the development of vaccines. At that point in time, we were in our infancy, and we were still able to produce amazing vaccines despite being in our infancy in terms of vaccine development. So vaccines were only being developed by a few countries at the time, and it was a new burgeoning process. It had gone through many different phases from the late 1800s up through the 1950s. The new process that began in the 1950s was still building up in the 60s, and so vaccines took a while to develop. So this is something that is just, it's not, we can't really draw a direct line to it, not for the sake of this argumentation anyway. And I don't think it's a worthy argument against my position. As for the technology sharing, this is something that I think does need to happen, and comes with the argumentation that I was providing in my opening statement, which is that technology, the ability to transfer technology, has been greatly inhibited at this point in time because of the intellectual property protections of these very things. The WTO's TRIPS Council mandates that all member nations of the WTO honor the intellectual property protections of not just medicines themselves, but medical technology. That includes software, hardware, etc. And this is something that greatly limits other countries' ability to actually build on their own solutions for their own country to help themselves get out of the constant flood of COVID cases, to deal with treatment, to come up with inhibitory drugs. It's not even just about vaccines. It's about treating symptoms. It's about treating cases. They are constantly falling behind on this because they're not allowed this technology without having to shell out a lot of money that they don't already have, or they lack the resources in general in order to bargain. So if we were to ease these patent protections or lift them entirely for the duration of a significant global crisis like we have now, it's much more likely that they are able to then go and develop their own solutions and solve their own problems. And again, this leads back to, the more we hold them back from doing this, the more the overall global economy is going to suffer from the reverberations of this, as those communities within those countries that are most affected by this have their populations dwindle and have economic hardships that set them back significantly and limit their ability to be contributors to the global economy that we already depend on. Again, as for mentioned, the various materials and resources, chemicals that we depend on that are brought forth by these people within these countries. We will feel the effects of this if we don't ease these patent protections and allow them to provide their own solutions to their own problems.
Time. Okay, based. Dio, whenever you're ready.
You frame this in a particular way that makes it sound like the problems of these developing countries when it comes to developing vaccines is somehow different. Like the way that vaccines are going to be developed in India should somehow look differently than they should in the United States. That's incredibly dangerous, because not only would that increase something like vaccine hesitancy, but because of like possibly poor conditions and what exactly you're putting in people's bodies. But the medicine is the same. It's identical. The technologies required in order to produce the vaccines are identical. It's not this sort of weird, well, we're making movies or something. We're talking about medicines, right? So there's it's not a different problem that needs to be solved here. right? We're talking about the same technologies. We're talking about the same medicines. We're not talking about different things for different people, different drugs for different folks. It's the same. So what we're going to be talking about here, the problem has to be the same. The solution is identical. So the facilities that are required and the lack of funding the lack of funding in these countries isn't really the result of something like intellectual property. What the problem is, it's going to be the lack of technology transfer. I've stated this before, but the fact that they don't have the technology to produce the vaccines that we're talking about, because if they did, well, something like vaccine waivers wouldn't be something a large amounts of people are disputing would solve the problem. We're not going to see, even if we were talking about this, I say this before, get rid of all intellectual property rights, and you wouldn't see instantly billions of vaccines being developed in India and in these low to middle income countries all of a sudden. It would just pop out of nowhere. What you would require, and what I think would actually more likely incentivize this sort of thing, is countries from higher income countries investing in these countries. Why? Because they actually get something out of it. What do they get out of it? A whole bunch of money from these drugs being developed. If these companies like AstraZeneca, like Pfizer, actually gain money from building facilities in these countries, in these low middle income countries, then they benefit from like these vaccines being given to them. It's not just going to be a charity case. So even supposing you got rid of these protections, I think it would actually harm it even more, because we'd see a decrease in investment in these countries. So you haven't really established why I would see a rapid increase in the amount of or even just an increase in the amount of vaccines that would be deployed here. And then secondly, the historical case, I've kind of argued this before, the historical case is really poor, right? Because we don't live in a world like an alternate history where in the past we actually had the intellectual protection rights that would have shown us an increase in the amount of vaccine deployment. Similarly, we live now in a world with a whole bunch of technology that's quite changed, that's quite different, where we see a rapid increase in the amount of vaccines that are being deployed. And then what an actual good argument is say, hey, let's look at in our current time, let's look at drugs that don't really have our intellectual property rights and drugs that do. Generics versus non-generics, right? And guess what? Generics frequently suffer from funding. The alternative is brand name products don't. That's all I have to say.
Nice. Okay. Zonia, since you started, you have the last rebuttal. Okay. So whenever you're ready. Mm-hmm.
All right. I don't think my opponent has been able to make a strong enough case that debunks my position. My position is still pretty strong and standing on its own in terms of what it is that we are going to have to face in the long run because of this situation. Overall, we've had a very successful, thriving pharmaceutical industry, and easing patent protections on intellectual property isn't going to make them go away. They're going to continue having their own brand that they can sell off at their prices however they want. There will be competition with competing aftermarket brands, of course, but competition is healthy. This will allow other countries that are usually unable to provide these solutions and always end up having to negotiate after the fact in order to get the solutions created by other countries, would have more opportunity to develop their own solutions and build their own success and contribute even more so to the overall global economy. And with, as mentioned before, our dependency on these countries, the most economically impacted countries, our dependency on them for core materials and chemicals that we use in everyday technology, which includes our vaccines, we can't just continue ignoring this problem and being so strict about intellectual property protections, particularly in the times of crises. This is something that we're going to end up having to feel the effects of over time, no matter what, generations will feel this. I think that my argument still stands quite strongly. I don't believe my opponent was able to push very hard against my initial opening, and I think that our judges would have to vote for the affirmative in this case, because there's not really another option in terms of what is most likely to provide long-term benefits and success to the global economy and to the countries that we depend on for our resources. If we were to continue going down the path that we're going down, we are going to face shortages of resources and rising costs for obtaining those resources, and everything is going to cost more from that. All of our technology that we depend on comes, well, not the vast majority of our technology that we depend on comes from resources sourced from these countries that are most economically impacted. So if we just ignore this, it's something that we're just going to have to face the consequences of and deal with rising inflation and rising costs overall. I see my time.
All right. Okay. So now we go for the ending statements. Dio, goes first, then Zonia. What do you call?
Right, I
Yes.
thought that was the
So
closer.
that was the last rebuttal.
I
Closers are 5 minutes.
I said it was closer. Oh, okay.
No. Yeah.
So
closers are
I
5
thought there was
minutes.
one more rebuttal for each of us, and then I close.
Sure. That was your closure. Okay.
That's what I thought was the case, but okay. Yeah. I
Okay,
see
so
what you were gonna do.
yeah,
It was rebuttal, and
it's
then close.
yes, exactly.
Oh, I'm sorry. I got
yeah,
distracted.
okay.
Lost track of
So
it.
no worries. Okay. It was a good rebuttal still. So in the closures, this is actually good. What you do is basically you crystallize all of your points. I apologize. You crystallize all of your points, and after that, you're not allowed to like put new points. You're just like reframe all of your points and try to convince the judges on why you should you should vote for them. Okay, I'll start with the Dio and then go with Zonia. Go ahead, Dio. Dio,
Okay.
whenever you're ready.
So I've stated multiple times, kind of that vaccines are important to the future development of medical technology, and my opponent has stated that I haven't properly rebutted against this. They've stated that I've kept saying that I've ignored the problem surrounding whether or not we will be able to keep getting resources from the developing world. And instead, what they've really ignored is the vast amount of alternatives, and the alternatives are necessary, regardless of even whether this vaccine waiver goes through or not. They haven't acknowledged that we wouldn't see rapid deployment of these things, even if we got rid of the intellectual property rights whatsoever, even slightly. If we got what they wanted, we wouldn't see the rapid deployments that they're talking about. And possibly the absolute opposite. What we need to do in order to make sure that the middle and low income countries are secure is we need to invest a large amount of money into facilities in these countries. And the way that we get this money to these countries is through both private investment and public investment. You really need both in order to solve this problem, similar to the reason why you need both in order to solve problems like climate change. We cannot go ahead and have a large degree of private investors invest in property that they don't know whether it was going to be theirs the next year or not, or the next crisis or not. In a stable economy, property rights are protected. And in a destabilized economy, property rights are largely not. So if we were to just arbitrarily, again, remove these property rights, I'd be very skeptical we'd see the sort of investment we have now. I'd be skeptical that we saw in the previous decades, we would see the sort of vaccine development that we have now, with vaccines developed in literally months after we get the we actually get the DNA, not the DNA, the RNA from the actual vaccine. Like it's from the actual virus. It's incredible how fast the COVID-19 vaccines were developed, and there's no other vaccine development rate like it. Why? We can thank intellectual property rights for a lot of it. And despite intellectual property rights, companies still competed and invested huge degrees of money in order to come out and come out with it first. So what we see is competition with these vaccines happens initially, and then later on we think that, well, there's no competition. There was competition when the initial investment came in to develop the vaccines. That's where the competition was. So to just ignore that is to be a little bit naive, and not only a little bit naive, but ignore the fact that we aren't going to see this rapid deployment that people imagine if we just got rid of intellectual property rights. There's so much other things that are behind this that will actually speed up deployment. More donations of vaccines, actual facilities that are similar from these companies being built in other countries, the governments cooperating to decrease the rate of vaccine hesitancy. Like, these are the things that will really make sure that there's a rapid deployment and adoption of vaccines, not something like waiving property rights for a few months. That's all I have to say.
All right. Zonia?
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go. All right. More than 100 countries have come to support the waiver of the IP protections, and more than 100 members of the WTO have come forward. So that is, out of 164, that's more than 60% of the member nations of the WTO who are in support of reducing the IP protections for medicines and for medical technology. Sorry, my cat is making noise. This is something that is unprecedented. We've never seen this kind of a thing before, where we have such a severe global pandemic that is impacting so many economies, so many countries, so many sources of resource. We have shipments that are delayed. We have resource acquisitions that are delayed. We've got reduced capacity for resources, reduced labor. Everything is building upon itself. And no matter what, this is something that we are going to have to face the consequences of eventually. The more that we try to restrict the ability of these other countries to build upon their own solutions by using solutions that were created or invented by wealthier nations, the more we're going to feel the impact of this. This is something that we simply cannot deny. And the fact that we've got more than 60% of the member nations of the WTO who are also advocating for reducing these protections during this time of crisis tells you that this is a very popular position among members of the World Trade Organization, the member nations themselves. This is a very strong advocacy for making a change. Patent protections are a great thing in terms of the ability to initially create a solution and ensure that you can have ownership of that solution for a little while and gain something from it. But that gain shouldn't come at the cost of the overall global economy, and it absolutely should not come at the cost of lives, millions upon millions of lives. This is something that we should be able to make a pretty fair judgment call, that if we care about our overall profits, if we care about our ability to evolve new solutions and develop new vaccines and new medical miracles, so to speak, that we should also be able to say that those things are built upon by the resources gained from the countries most negatively impacted by this crisis. It's self-referential. We cannot just say, oh, as long as we have these protections, they can continue profiting off of it, and that will motivate them to continue to produce more of these solutions and come up with them quicker. Because the more that process of protection continues to allow these other countries that we get the resources from to provide those solutions to be decimated, to be economically decimated, and to be manpower decimated, the more that's going to impact our ability for these pharmaceutical companies and medical companies to produce these solutions. They have to go through the delays, waiting for the reagents, waiting for the technology. We're waiting for the components for the technology, waiting for all these other additional resources that come from the very countries most impacted by this pandemic. This is something that I think is very self-evident, and I believe that my position was sound and clear, and it still stands on its own. I ask that the judges vote in the affirmative. I cede my time.
Based. Okay, thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Zonia. Thank you, Dio. Thank you, everyone, for attending. This was amazing. Now get the fuck. No, I'm just kidding. Now we're gonna go, and I'm gonna go call my other two judges, Kino and Dio. You guys are allowed to speak, to bring up your opinions while we are outside talking. And when we will come back shortly with the verdict. Wait, did I say Dio is a judge? I'm sorry, I meant Elm and Kino. I apologize. Okay. No, it's Kino and
That's not fair.
no, I'm okay. So, all right, don't worry about it. Okay. I'm gonna head out now, and I'll see y'all in a second. Okay. And yep.
All right. I think my cat had a pretty salient argument there.
All right, Zonia. I'm actually, you know that I'm like my actual position is like literally yours, right?
Yeah, I'm not surprised, honestly.
Why you do this?
It explains why your arguments are so weak, to be honest with you.
Honestly, no. Like, the problem is, even though I'm like I hold Zonia's position, it's hard to argue it. There's a lot of things that move against it, like in general, like the world just doesn't. I don't know.
Yeah. Man, I gotta admit, I was super nervous for this whole thing.
Are you still nervous?
Still got the feel of nerves a little bit, yeah, but
you got the jitters.
Yeah. It's been a long time since I've done this type of.
He likes philosophy, but he's a nice person. Somehow.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people here.
We've been for a long time.
How many are there here?
What was that, yeah?
Why was that voice so?
32.
Yeah, I haven't spoken to you in a while.
Oh, hi, Doobie.
Hello.
Whoa! I'm not Nils. This time I'm not bullying anybody. Don't worry. We have to wait until the judges come with the verdict I disagree with. Then
all right.
That's when the bullying starts. Okay?
Oh, my cool friends are showing up.
The only people I ever bully is the judges. Okay.
Yeah, I haven't done this type of a debate in a very, very long time.
So, you did really well.
If the judges come back and they favor your view, then your
of course
view
I'm going to disagree
instantly
with
it ascends into the platonic heaven of immutable truths and it's forever undeniable.
I wish it worked that way. Actually, no, I don't.
Look, Zonia, I think you might win. Not because I think you might. I think you should win though. I don't think
You guys
should
are
win.
way too nice. My
I'm gonna be
God.
honest, right? I totally think I won that, but you know.
I
Too much
felt
more.
like I did really poorly on the first rebuttal. Well, honestly, first and second, because I got nervous and I kind of got distracted and then thought I was closing. That was
I
what.
don't know if this is a thing, but I noticed that like frequently when I'm in like debates with people, they'll say you haven't responded to anything that I've said. I'm like, okay. I don't know. I don't like when I'm debating somebody, I don't usually say that unless they really haven't done that.
Yeah.
But I don't it's just a common thing. I don't know why, but it's a really common thing to say that. I don't think it I don't think
Yeah,
it's
I say that all the time, but it's always
Have
true.
you heard of the shotgun method in speech and debate? You just raise as many possible controversial issues in regards to the opponent's view as you can, and then you just like inveigh against them for not addressing every single topic.
Yeah. I didn't do that.
wait.
I don't like people who do that either. But I think that there is like this weird thing where some people will say that you do that, and then you're like, all of these points I can go into, and they're all problems with what you said, and we can go into like when somebody says like something that like the Earth is flat. Well, there's a bunch of issues with that. This one, and then they miss like 90% of the problems that you outlaid with something ridiculous like the Earth is flat, and you're like, well, you're using the shotgun method, right? You see all these. You're saying I didn't respond to like most of your points about why the Earth isn't flat, and I'm like.
Well, another problem that's kind of unique
that's
to,
equally a problem. It's like a reverse shotgun, I guess you could call it.
well, one thing that's hard in a debate format to resolve is when you get a dueling studies situation where like one person has one study, the other person has another, and possibly you guys haven't read each other's studies, and certainly the audience hasn't read either of the studies, and so it's just like, well, who's right? And you can Google it and try to come up with some criticisms off the right off the cuff, but it's not gonna work
It usually
that
doesn't
well.
work out very well, and it's usually slow.
Yeah.
I think that's specifically why I didn't do anything like that. I could have done that.
The problem is like I actually think it's the only way to reach truthful conclusions though. You kind of have to
not in a
just
debate.
like
not
doesn't
like
work out. You have to do that over. You have to do
Like-
that over like a long conversation. It's just like debate's generally not a great way to like. I think it's a good way to be introduced to a topic, at least like a short form debate or something like that.
Yeah.
Whereas like a long term discussion where both people are applying in different books that they've written, that's where you actually get to something like that.
Yeah, you have to you really have to schedule some serious time and like multiple sessions if you want to get into really sussing out truth about something and using facts that can be fact checked and such, and giving your opponent, you have to give your opponent all the material ahead of time, and so they have to be, if you want to do that properly, you got to share each other's information beforehand and hope that both sides study it. And you can't do that in this kind of a thing. A debate tournament, you really don't want to be bringing out a bunch of stuff that the opponent can't engage with. So you kind of want to be sticking with whatever the AF comes up with, and then providing rebuttal counterpoints to those things. Having some of your own base of knowledge and resources to draw from where you can build on the debate, but still not deviating into territory where they would have to be going and looking stuff up, right? You really want it to be stuff they can engage with.
Suggestion might be some sort of amount of research material that you can add, like a limited set. So let's say maybe you have maybe 10,000 character limit or something like that for how much research you can be. I'd probably limit less than that, maybe 5,000 or something, 5,000 characters. And so that you can give this amount of research material, and you're both expected to read in combination something like 10,000 maximum. All right, that's the maximum.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's the amount that you can like send or you can ask somebody to read in one of these debates, and maybe that would be a little bit better. But that's a little too much for the audience, right? Anyway, that's all I
Yeah.
have to say.
I learned a lot from the preparation on this because I was coming at it from a completely different angle originally. And as I started to read up more and more on it, I started to realize that the angle that I was coming at it from, first of all, I wouldn't be able to support it very well. But secondly, it seemed really out of touch with what the reality of the situation was. And just as I dug deeper and deeper into this whole thing, I started to realize I was like, oh my, there's something really, really solid here that I can argue from and dig into. And my original position would have just flopped.
You did absolutely raise a new argument you didn't in the rest of the debate, like out of nowhere. The 160, the consensus.
Oh yeah,
argument, that came at a left field.
Yeah, because I actually had that in the early part of my so I've got like my written opener, and then at the top though I had some like key notes that I should have put at the bottom, and so I completely forgot about them. And when I mentioned early on in my opener that more than 100 nations support this, I forgot that in my notes it was like more than 60% of the member nations of the WTO. And so I completely forgot to introduce that. So when I did it as a closer, it's a little like I wanted to make sure that I brought it up, but yeah, it doesn't give you the ability to engage with it, unfortunately.
At all whatsoever.
Sorry about that. I didn't even think about that. I was just like, oh, because I'm scanning through my own document, right? And going back through to kind of crystallize my points. And I go back to the very top and then I see my notes there.
Yeah, you see that and you're like, oh, I must have said that, right?
Yeah, I should have put those notes at the bottom because obviously once I've read down to the bottom of my opener, I'm not really scrolling back up again because I'm going off of rebuttals. So I should have kept the notes at the bottom.
Yeah, it's fair. It's fair.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
It's all right. It's all right.
Yeah, the last time that I did anything like this was back in the 90s.
What do you mean?
I haven't done parliamentary debate or any kind of like competitive debate since like my college days.
Oh, okay. I'm just saying, like, so before I was born.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why I was so nervous.
Alright, that's fine. I mean, like,
I couldn't
don't know,
even remember
whether I should be humbled or like what? Because you can actually legitimately say I was debating people before you were born. Like you can say that. Like
I was never I was never anything special, so it's not like any kind of big claim to fame or anything. I was just on a debate team in the 90s, in the late 90s, like 1997 primarily.
Yeah, that's
96
before
97.
I was born. Okay, cool.
Yeah, and I wasn't particularly good at it, mainly because I'm dyslexic, so I read kind of like it's like things are hard for me to read on the fly out loud, and so I kind of struggle with that sometimes. And so I was never really one of like the spectacular debaters. Like everybody was better than me basically, but I enjoyed it, and it was just sort of a fun academic exercise. And yeah, to have so many years without ever doing it, I was getting nervous, thinking like, wait, am I doing the right thing here? You know, and just feeling like I was way out of my element. So
I mean, it's been a bit since I've debated seriously, but I wouldn't. It's not like I can't say it like it's been 3 decades or something like that.
I've done blood sports debates,
so I don't have that much like I don't like excuse. Like, hey.
I've done like blood sports debates, though it's still been a while
Oh,
since I've done that. I used to do a lot of internet debates back years ago, but I got out of debate probably around like 2018-ish or so.
How does that work on politics? Like, I don't understand. Like, you're on politics. You're not a typical politics user. How do I, like, in a very, like, to be quite honest, like somebody who hasn't debated in that long or whatever, you know, like, it's just very, like, even though like blood sports or like what do you, it's very different, I have to say.
Yeah. So for
Nico,
politics,
if you don't, if that's a surprise to you, like, yeah, you haven't been on politics long enough. Okay.
Listen, no, listen. I'm like new to this whole like internet.
Yeah,
like,
I can
Discourse
tell
sort
if
of shit.
you're
Like, I
asking
don't know.
that question. Yeah.
Dude, I've only been in here for
I
like a
think
month.
even
I don't
Zonia
know.
understands what I'm saying.
Oh
right?
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. See?
I'm not a super active user on politics. I'm
All
more of a every once in a while I show up on a voice chat or I kind of interact in Gen chat, but honestly I don't do any debate on there. Most of the debate that I've done with politics people, I've actually done it on a different server and it's more casual, like we're on a voice chat together hanging out and then something comes up and then we start arguing about something. So I'm more just kind of there occasionally to just say hi to people and kind of hang out and shoot the shit with people. And for debate, I really don't do much of any debate at all these days. The last quote.
See, so you're nominally, even if I lose to you, you're nominally a politics user, but really barely an actual one. So that's fine. Even if I lose to you, I feel like this is better. Like to CC like to CC fellows here. What this really means is that basically, like politics have to pull in international talent. Okay, that's the only reason why they were able to win. If they even do win, that's the only reason why.
I
That's
don't.
what that tells you.
I honestly don't know how I made the politics team because I signed up in CC, and
I know why you made it because look at what the rest of their team was like, right? So like that's why.
Damn.
Oh man,
Theo throws shade.
Yeah, I
They
mean,
have
because
like
I
one
didn't
person that won a debate. I think.
I
They
didn't
won, like,
rate
one
myself very high. I gave myself a 5 in terms of skill, and I didn't even expect to make it onto either team. So the fact that I made it onto a team surprised me. And Valency and I were talking on voice chat one night, and he just kind of popped it on me. He's like, "Oh, you made the team, by the way," and I was like, "Oh, okay." I seriously didn't expect it.
Yeah.
We need to
I think
bully
you're the
Valencia
diversity
into letting me sub in for one of the people that dropped out. We had like 3 dropouts or something. It's fucking lame.
Two dropouts from politics.
You need to get your server together, Doobie.
Look, I think the issue is this dragged on like 2 months or something. It feels like it's just dragged on for a long time, so people lose interest. Politics users are very they don't like riding old horses. They want to jump onto the new thing.
Yeah. They don't like riding horses they've fallen off of.
I don't think that's true. See, Apple. Hold on, Apple won.
I'm sorry. I maybe I'm going too far. I'm sorry. If you start crying, look, I got some tissues for you.
Look, Apple won his debate, and then he dropped out because it took too long for you guys to be scheduling these events.
Sure.
CC needs to get his
That's
act
why.
together.
That's why that happened.
And I know it's really difficult for you guys to get activity into your voice channels and make people want to come in and talk to people on here in the first place because you're all very socially awkward. So it just takes a long time to schedule these events.
Beans is both sizing this issue, by the way.
Actually in college and like have jobs and lives and are not 16-year-olds that have unlimited time.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, that's like 0.5% of your population. Let's be real.
Only 0.5%.
Vast majority of CC users are NEETs who read philosophy and don't actually have a job or go to school.
That's projection.
I only speak the truth.
Wait, Doobie, are you the server owner for the other server?
Basically, yeah.
Okay. So what do you think about what was Dio saying about like the typical politics user? What does the typical politics user look like in your
He's
opinion?
I'd actually agree with Dio. See, Dio he used to be a politics server user, but things got really heated, and he ran away here because it's much safer for him because people are less intelligent and they're not going to challenge him as directly. But in politics,
It's
people do tend to be very aggressive, right, when debating. So it is true that Zonia is not a typical member.
I see.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hey.
Sorry,
Oh, shit.
Hello.
Welcome. Hello. Welcome. How are we feeling? How's the feelings?
Yeah.
I hear Doobie seething and coping. How are
What? Yeah, nothing new. It's rude.
Yes. Okay. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, whoa. Don't-
There's been fun banter here between politics and
Nice.
CC.
Nice. Yes. Okay. You guys keep checking out, bro. I'm sorry, but yeah. All right. So all right. So let's go. Bismillah. Okay. This is we've decided. Me, Elm, and Kino are going to first of all lay out our votes and then say how or why this happened. Why this votation happened, and yeah, that's it. I want to thank Zonia for coming. I want to thank Dio for coming. I want to thank everyone here for listening. You guys have been amazing. All right. And yeah, so the winner is roll please. Roll please. Brrr,
Cringe.
brrr, grrr, brrr. Okay. Brrr. Yes, drum roll. Okay, drum roll. All right. Based. Yes, it's Dio. Dio won.
Ah,
okay. Yeah. GG.
congratulations.
All right. Congratulations. Okay. Thank you, Zonia. Thank you, Dio, for participating. It's been great. Okay.
Alright.
As reward, we always give before I start. We give some monies. Okay. Wait. Why? No. I know
You didn't
why.
bank give. Yeah.
Yep. I'm sorry. I am. Am I poor?
Your card declined? What's going on here?
No. Go ahead. This is for Dio. Even though Dio is rich as fuck, but still fine, wallah.
Look, I'm not the richest owner anymore.
Wow, it's not working.
I don't know why.
Why? Okay.
Because you keep doing personal. You have to bank it.
I am totally not high. Okay. All right. So all right. Go. Oh my god. Okay. DiCaprio, do it later, please. All right. So yeah. Okay. I wanna go ahead.
Wait, the judge is high? How can we trust you to make the decision? You came to this like
No,
inebriated?
I don't do drugs. Okay, don't worry about it.
Oh my god, this explains
Yes.
everything. Okay, the decision makes sense now.
Do not do drugs. Okay, don't worry about it. All right. So I want to start with Kino. Go ahead. You can say your vote, who you voted for, and why. Okay.
Sure. I'll keep it very concise and simple. I did
Yes.
vote for Dio. I think although Dio may have started off a little bit weak with the his initial statements, I think he was very effective in retorting Zeno's points. Or Zoniet, sorry. I found that he had the much more convincing arguments, and I think he ended off very fiery. It was his final statement where he brought up all of his points, I think was very phenomenal, and it was what I was looking for. I did find it a little bit unfortunate. There were certain points that I was hoping would be discussed, as this is a very hot debate topic on the world stage right now, and there are a few points that I thought were missed. One big point was one of the reasons that many of the vaccine developers are being or what they stated out there, there is a concern to the possibility if other countries were freely able to create vaccines, do they have the capability of doing so? Could they actually create effective vaccines? And is there a risk of these company or other countries that are simply still developing and not as wealthy as the United States, could they create potentially an ineffective vaccine that actually harms people rather than actually help them? And what impact could that actually have? I think that is a point that should have actually been discussed a little bit more, or just in general. Otherwise, I just simply found Dio's arguments to be a little bit more effective here, so my vote went to Dio. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Then go ahead, Elm.
I came into this debate agreeing with oh my gosh, I came into this
Zonia.
debate agreeing with Zonia because I'm a bleeding heart lib. Okay, I agreed that all countries should have the right to develop their own vaccines. There shouldn't be patents. I'm generally anti-patent, but Dio's argumentation was very effective. My mind started changing when Dio brought up the point that America has created 2 out of 3 of the most effective vaccinations, and they also have donated I believe 3/4 of the most, or 3/4 of the vaccine donations have come from America, which is like a extremely powerful point, right? And Zonia even agreed with this. I think there were other great retorts talking about, yes, like vaccine hesitancy and like would these countries even have the investment power to create the vaccines? And even with the patents allow for more like medical research and medical progression. I think those are very, very good points. So I had to vote for Dio in this debate. But it was a very good debate. I enjoyed it a lot.
Okay. Nice. My last vote went to Zonia. And that's because generally it was very equal, rhetorically speaking. The openers were okay, both of them. Zonia did better at the opener than Dio. Dio was speed-wise was kind of slow, so that they didn't like mush up good negative points. But in the back and forth, the Dio's like back and forth were a little bit better, so it like equaled it out. I really liked how they mentioned the what do you call it, the Zonia's point of the hypothesis, if they have the patents, like minority countries are going to get less aid, and the retort, as said, about like America being like a major donor for these vaccines, etc. But I don't like still think that's like enough to convince me, which is like the whole idea of the rhetoric, to like go get with the other position of like Dio. At the end, I feel like Zonia's mishearing or misunderstanding the way that the conclusions like work. I felt like her first conclusion was very amazing, and if it ended at that point, I'd say Zonia would get the 3 votes for sure. But the conclusions also were kind of jumbled. But they were good in a general sense. Zonia did add a little point, but I will forgive it because of like the jumbling that happened. So I would say generally Zonia did a little bit better rhetorically speaking, but that's it. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, congrats to Dio. Also thank you very much, Zonia. You're always welcome here. And yeah, amazing.
Thanks.
Yeah. Of course. Yeah. Sure. And then we're done. I will send y'all, or you guys can stay here and talk about
Valence,
it.
I'll send you the
Go ahead.
feedbacks and
All right. Okay. Thank you. All right. No one comes. Okay. All right. I'm gonna send y'all to common room, or like actually debate room too, so everyone can go and talk about it. Okay.
All right.
So we can free the chat. Thank you very much all for coming. Okay. Yeah. Let's send y'all. Help me out, other mods, please. Okay. All right. Nice.
1 second. Okay.
Yeah. Move him to debate room too. Okay. Thank you. All right. Thank you.
Newbie, I gotta ask you a quick question. Chocolate Nova backed out. Can you please ban him from the politics server?
Why would I ban him?
Because he was too much of a coward to debate me.
No. Wait, no, I think he and well, lots of people on the politics admin team and mod team are actually like they went to meet up in real life in like Florida or some shit. So I think that's where they are right now.
All right.
Why Florida though?
I don't know. They were able to get 20 tickets or whatever.
Also,
Yeah, a lot of them are in
he was
Florida right
playing-
now, like Disney World.
No, he was
Probably the
playing League of
COVID
Legends.
restrictions are lesser there.
No. He was playing League of Legends.
Wait, he's playing League? Nah, fuck that. I'm banning this shit.
Okay. All right.
Wow.
Hello. All right. So what's up?
Instead of debating me, this boy played
Hi.
League of Legends. Not
Yeah.
even the proper game. He played ARAM, okay? Like,
What's wrong with ARAM? I love ARAM.
Yeah, why are you gonna hate on
no,
ARAM,
ARAM.
Space Girl?
no.
Gee.
Hold on. Instead of
What is
I
ARAM?
understand. I understand he's playing like League of Legends, right? Like competitively, right? And that's why he couldn't like debate me,
Did you-
right? But nah, he was playing ARAM instead of
Did
debating.
you know that pro teams actually practice ARAM for team fighting?
That makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense.
ARAMs are just different. Like honestly, it's like if you like team fighting, then like ARAMs are really cool.
Exactly.
But yeah, like space. That's just bullshit, though.
What do you mean that's just bullshit? It's literally all team fight because there's only
No.
one lane.
No. I was referring to what Space Girl was saying
Oh,
about
okay.
like, how it was like
he didn't debate
he
me.
was just using it as an excuse to get out of debate. It's like fucking ARAM.
No.
Like,
No.
It's good
I'm
practice.
gonna go yell at
Practice is
somebody on politics.
important.
Yes,
but
go
Hold on,
ahead.
sorry, I'm not too
Go ahead.
educated. What is an ARAM?
All
It's for the
random, all new.
governmental stuff.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, never mind. Okay, got
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, it's just a different game mode.
Okay.
I love ARAM.
It's so much
I like
fun.
ARAMs.
Bro, let's play. Let's do it.
I haven't played in forever.
I'm pretty sure my League of Legends thing probably has like 3 updates it needs to go through.
I think I uninstalled League. The
Zonia,
correct decision.
you should definitely come to the server more though.
Yeah. Oh, thanks.
I think
You
I
are-
think you fit in more here.
Yeah. You are considered a celebrity. Okay. That's all right. Anything that
thanks.
becomes a celebrity. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, to answer your question, Valency.
Yes.
Yeah, I have a little bit of experience with debate, but not for a while. I did
because go ahead.
I did like internet debate stuff in 2016, 2017, 2018 off and on. I was never a very like consistent debater. It was just like every once in a while. And since then since 2018, I've only been in I think one debate. It was a blood sportsy debate, impromptu thing that came up. So it wasn't like scheduled or anything. So yeah, a little inexperienced. And then my only experience with like parliamentary style debate was back in college in 96, 97. I was never one of the good debaters on the team. I was kind of like I just enjoyed the exercise of it, and so I would do debates, but I wasn't usually like a I don't know, like people didn't look at me as one of the more known debaters, you know.
Yeah. You
what I
did. Yeah, you did great. I like when you said a part of me when I realized someone knows like or have did parliamentary debates before is when they address the judges.
Yeah.
That's like something that usually an inexperienced dude will not do. But usually if you like listen to debates or parliamentary debates, you can see like people address the judges. That's good. You've done it twice in this debate. That's good. You did good. Generally, it was a good, enjoyable debate.
Yeah, I felt rusty because I was like forgetting at times that because you kind of get into the flow when you do it regularly and you're used to, like you were saying, addressing the judges and such. What?
Hi, Messi.
I think they said hi, Crunchy Cat. I think you could continue. I don't think they meant to say that to them.
It's not Crunchy Cat, it's Garby Cat.
Hello. Welcome.
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah, but it's a
thank you.
fun exercise. Like even if I don't end up getting the votes, I don't mind it. I just enjoy the process.
Moderator on this,
Wait 1 second.
There's somebody
Zonia,
talking.
Zonia is talking. Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I just enjoy the academic exercise of it. It was kind of, in a way, even though I was really, really nervous going into this because it had been so long, I felt like I was still inspired, right? Because I was like, this is going to be fun. I always enjoyed doing this, and it's an exercise, right, that you don't normally get to do. So
Yeah, amazing. Oh, I generally did not want Dio to win. Okay, I generally hate this guy. Okay, I absolutely loathe him. All right, but it is what it is. Okay, unfortunate. Yeah. والله شو بدنا نسوي؟ Okay, damn bro. Okay, I'm gonna head out. That was amazing. Okay, enjoy.
Yeah, you're
Have fun
still
though.
high, so go enjoy the rest of
No,
it.
I am. What? Okay, I literally slept for 2 hours.
What?
The high just went off. Okay, all right.
Before you go, I had a request.
Go ahead.
Are you? I saw in your profile you're admin. Can you rank me up?
Oh my god, you are Carpe Cat. Holy shit, I
Face?
do remember you. You're like a big boy, big boy in fucking what do you call it, in politics, bro. Good job. That's what you come here for, bro. Okay. So
I just
all
came
right.
because there was a notification saying there's a debate.
Yeah. GG, bro. And yeah, okay. All right. So
Good one, Valency.
yeah.
I
I feel like that was a
So Goose
soft
just has to
reject.
be
Yeah.
Dude,
Goose
you
has
want to
to
keep
be, Chad, and that's it.
those debate muscles fresh. Just freaking talk to fucking freaks on the internet. That's what I do.
it's such a different style of debate, though. Like, it's really hard to compare the internet debate kind of stuff that you have versus parliamentary style debate.
Let's be clear, Zonia. You know that the people in these debate clubs aren't really normal.
Dude, some of the people that I teamed up with were just like inhuman in how fast they could talk, how quickly they could read, how well they could accumulate like all the points in a live setting and rebut.
Yeah.
And it just blows me away because I'm not that fast. Like, I can't really talk very fast, and I'm dyslexic, so I can't read very fast. So I'm always at a disadvantage on the team that I was on before. So I always expected to not get the judge votes. Usually my openers were pretty strong. I was always pretty good with openers because overall I'm a pretty good writer and good at creating like supporting points and arguments in terms of writing. But when I'm doing the live thing, I'm not as good at it, and so I talk slower and I kind of get mixed up a bit sometimes.
I will show you my notes.
Wait, what do you do in openings? Like what is it like?
I'm
What does it
gonna
consist
post
of?
what I wrote in voice chat. If you can decode that, go ahead.
Your notes? All right. My notes are kind of trash. Let me take a
My
look.
notes were the worst.
Wait,
in this
what do
debate.
your openings consist of though?
I think I forgot.
Like what does it say? Like does it say like all your points of views?
It's like a thesis. It's like the thesis for the arguments, I believe, that you're going to present throughout the debate. That's what it is.
My
argument
I
is
had a
really
major
just like
I had
saying,
one major point to make, and I had minor points. The major point I had to make is that intellectual property will like you need sufficient funding in order to promote it. And then there were a bunch of minor arguments that were connected to that, and some of them were like, oh well, this lasts for a very short period of time. We're not going to like, even if you had what you wanted, we wouldn't expect to see like the amount of deployment that you're talking about. And there's like other effects that are more pertinent here, etc. I'm not going to say the entire fucking opening. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, for my opinions, I just stay in my position. Like I don't like revealing too much of my arguments because I think that gives my enemy too prepared.
I
Isn't
mean, that's
the
kind
judge?
of the point is for the judges to understand what you're going to talk about.
Well, yeah. I say like, oh yeah, I believe this and that, but I won't be like I have this because of this primary source document that agrees with me so much.
It's 5 minutes. It's
think
usually
about this.
it can be longer, it can be shorter, but
Here,
you can
there's
definitely say something like that.
There's my
the
opener.
connections you make.
Could not render file review.
The connections that you make between the opening argument and then your subsequent because then they make their opening and then you get to respond and you try to use you try to make, if I recall correctly, connections to your opening argument, right, to your basically like your thesis, if you will, basically everything you presented. The judges are going to grade you on that, and if they think you're random, it's going to go against you.
Yeah, you have to engage with your opponent's position, and so the AF, or the affirmative, is the one who will open, and so they'll have like
Damn.
Oh my
It's a
god.
politics user. What do you know? I found him.
Someone mute them.
It's not that hard. It's pretty
Yeah, so the opener, or the AF, is going to be opening, and they're effectively setting the tone of the entire debate, and then the negative is going to be working with that position, or should be working with that position. If you don't, then the judges shouldn't be, or they should be, effectively frowning upon that, right?
I also
And
I
then,
want to point out to whoever said this, whoever said that they don't want to reveal too much to their opponent, if you are afraid of very obvious counters to your points, then your argument is not strong enough.
It's not obvious counters. They're
You
just
shouldn't
like
need to surprise your opponent in order to defeat them in a debate.
Yeah, like the
I
thing
shouldn't need to, yeah, but I like doing that.
the thing
No, I'm trying to point out, if you rely on a surprise at all, then you have not thought of effective counters well enough.
No, I definitely have.
Okay.
Okay.
Cool.
Then you don't need a surprise then.
Yeah, like the thing that I did at the end was, it was kind of unintentional. Like I wasn't paying attention when I did it. So at the very end, I brought up, in my closing statement, I brought up a new position, which you're not supposed to do, right? A new argument, which was that that the 100 countries. So I mentioned in my opener that the more than 100 countries were in support of easing the, or waiving the protections. But in my closing, I ended up effectively reframing that argument into something new that should have been rebutted, and I shouldn't have done that. And I ended up saying that the more than 100 countries, that's more than 60% of the 164 member nations of the WTO, and that's a completely separate point. And I wasn't really paying attention. I got a little thrown off when I did the third rebuttal as a close, or the what was it? Yeah, third rebuttal as a close. Or I don't remember how was I did it. When I prematurely did a closing statement, and that threw me off. And so then when I had to go back to a closing statement, I effectively had to try and reframe my closing statement so it wasn't the same thing as before. And so what I did was I scrolled back up into my document, and I have my notes at the top, like key points at the top that I wanted to focus on. And it was kind of like reading through them almost in an automatic kind of fashion and not really paying attention. And then I realized afterward that I had basically introduced a whole new argument in my closing statement.
Oh no.
So it's not something you want to do. And you really don't, like, in this kind of, like in internet blood sports debates, I mean, pretty much anything goes, right? You can surprise your opponents and do gotchas and crap like that.
Oh yeah, I like more blood sports. Like, what kind of debate format is the ones you guys were doing? It's one of the more proper ones.
This is parliamentary debate. It's like academic debate.
Oh, okay, yeah. That's no. So yeah, I mean, like, probably in that, I'd probably want to make my opening more. Yeah, I understand. I'm more used to like blood sports.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Okay.
There's a lot of people with the feminist tag. I'm just curious, like, what does it mean to be a feminist, like, in 2021?
And so it begins.
What it meant like 60 years ago, I don't know, probably.
It means you're pogged out of your gourd. That's what it means.
Hold on, let me grab my popcorn.
It means you're a good person.
It means you're pogged out of your gourd.
Based.
It means you've taken the black pill. Yeah, you're pogged out of your gourd. You just pogged so hard that you left your gourd.
What does that even mean?
I have no idea. It's really
Yeah.
funny.
I'm genuinely
mental
curious. What
stuff.
hogged out of your gourd mean?
So pogging is good, right? And when you pog so much that you exit your own dome and transcend, right? You dome your brain, right?
Okay.
You
Interesting.
transcend into the pogosphere, right? That's
The
where all
pog
the
sphere? Is
highest.
that's where all the thick bitches are, right? Yeah.
Poggers in
That's
the
where
chat.
that's where a lot of things are. But yeah, that's what feminism is in 2021 is pogging out of your gourd.
Was that an actual
No,
like
don't.
serious question though?
Obviously
Like
not.
Yes, it was
Yeah, it
serious.
was. Yeah, it was a serious. He's trying to
Don't
spark up
accuse
something
feminism
clearly.
of anything. How dare you?
Hey,
so,
I was giving a serious answer to a serious question.
I mean, if no one has a good answer, that's fine.
I have a great answer.
No,
Go for it.
don't bother.
Go
please.
step up to the plate.
I didn't say I was gonna say it. I just said I had a great
Wait,
Yeah,
answer.
nice,
wait.
nice. Nice.
Wait,
Thank you.
I'm lost. Like, why are you guys like refusing to?
Because this happens every
You're from
day.
politics, dude.
It's
That's
like
why. It's enough to say that.
That's not an answer to my question.
Well, then
Or,
you
I
just
mean,
Yeah, it is.
It is actually
it
an
is,
answer.
but it's not a
Wait.
good
I want to be
answer.
clear.
It's not a
Just
good
because you
answer.
asked a question doesn't mean people owe you an answer over
Not,
and over and over again.
yeah, they never said that. I'm just asking why you guys aren't answering.
Yeah. It's
because you're from politics.
I guess.
Well, I'm
but
not asking the question, so I didn't
So-
ask the question about feminism. So the fact that I'm in politics is irrelevant.
So the reason I am not answering is because this is a almost daily like question, and it doesn't matter what I say, right? It actually doesn't. Like no matter how good the answer I say is, no matter if I say that like feminism supports men and like their healthy practices as well, it doesn't matter. They probably don't actually care
Well, then why would they ask then if they?
because they want to talk.
I
They
don't
want to talk.
honestly. I think like people ask like, "What
Can
is
they talk about
feminism?"
something else they care about?
I appreciate you talking over me, but go for it.
I appreciate you steel manning me, Victor. It was a legitimate question, and I'm not here every day. I'm sure you guys do get that question a lot, but I just see a lot of the tags in here as feminism, so I figured I'd ask.
Right.
Oh no, I wasn't. I
Here,
wasn't getting
I
on
can
you
answer.
about that.
I can answer. So feminism is is a social movement that aims for the economic, personal, social, and political. Wait, I'm sorry. Somebody brought me food. Feminism aims to make men and women equal, politically, socially, and economically.
In general, or just as much as possible.
I don't know what the difference between those two are.
Like obviously, like it's gonna be hard to like make men and women like play in the same sports, right? It's gonna be
Not
really
really.
hard.
I would say
I mean,
women
he's
have
right.
those
I
things,
mean,
but
yeah,
maybe not
play in the same sports, but like make like to where it would like you're actually surprised. Like you see like a lot of diversity, like when it comes to like
Yeah.
people winning.
Will there be like disparity in football? Yeah, I agree.
Thank you. Ooh,
Will there
this
be
looks
like
amazing.
mega disparity in like in like volleyball and badminton and like other sports? I don't think so. Or like esports?
Maybe.
I don't think so.
Oh yeah, probably not esports, right? Yeah,
I
yeah.
think
But no, that's kind of what I'm saying. You know, as much as possible, right? Because you can try to do it as much as possible. You're obviously going to see disparities regardless of you, right? So
I think cheerleading needs to be respected more. I think it's
for
getting
men?
more respect in general.
Based,
Like I think it's getting more respect as men enter cheerleading, and I think that's sad. Like it already deserved the respect, and I think that now that it's getting more respect just because of men, it's sad. But
Yeah.
like cheerleading is like an incredibly active and incredibly physically draining sport. It always deserved the credit.
Wrestling is a very physically draining sport.
Yeah, I agree.
I thought we were ending all gender debates until next week.
Good.
How about
You're right.
Did you say
You're
wrestling
right. I'm
is
not allowed to
also?
talk. I'm not allowed to talk.
Yeah, wrestling is very
Gender with your
like,
mom.
bro. Have you been to like? Have you even seen like a dude? Like, if you see a wrestling tournament, bro, that
You guys
shit's
like
crazy.
Yeah, I've
Asian
seen it.
food? And what's your favorite? I'm
Like
just
in
Why are you
general?
culturally
Orange
appropriating,
chicken.
Rana? Why are you
I
culturally
like
appropriating?
Indian food.
Damn.
Like
Yeah,
all
What
like
kind
all
of
food.
like
I-
all Asian
like
food?
I
Like
tend
all
to lean toward Indian food
Unless
for
you're
most of my
Asian, you shouldn't
cooking.
eat Asian food.
I
Oh.
like Chinese food, but I've been kind of burned by a lot of local Chinese places, but I've
Ooh,
never
I have
been
to
burned
ask.
by local Indian.
Christmas
Does
cat, are
Russian
you
food
Asian?
count as Asian food? Russia is part of Asia.
Continentally,
Which type of Russian food?
kind of, but most of
Culturally,
Russia, like
culturally, it's like
Eastern
European.
European,
Yeah.
True, it is mostly Europe. Well, at least Eastern Russia is very European.
like a
Yeah.
lot of it's like we don't associate like we should, right? And we should, right? But does anybody know anything about like the cultures east of like Moscow? Does anybody?
I do. I've traveled through a lot of it, but
in Siberia.
Yeah.
Greater Siberia has got very different villages and cultures there.
Yeah, I think it's probably more Asian, like, or just kind of distinct culture.
Well, there's a lot of Mongolian culture in
Yeah.
that portion of Russia.
Well, I've had Mongolian food and I like it.
There's a lot of Turkic culture,
why
especially
are
in
the
southern Russia and the Caucasus regions, which I really tend to enjoy their food quite a lot. But Asian food, huh? That's a tough one. There's just so much to pick from.
It's like all Asian food.
Just say Indian food, dog.
I like a lot of Southeast
I love
Asian,
good Indian food though.
and I like Indian.
Indian is my go-to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Indian is my
Egg is
go-to as
fucking
well.
good.
Yeah, Indian is really good.
Dude,
Why, you
I
say you
think
love Indian food?
bro, try Arab food, bro. That shit's crazy.
I think Mongolian is actually really underrated.
It's good.
True. No,
you know
that's
what else
true.
is good? Vietnamese, but people only talk about pho for some reason. I don't know why.
Yeah.
That's true.
Pho is everywhere. That's why.
Have you had what's it called? God dang it. Wait, what are the baguette things? The sandwiches.
The baguette things.
What are you talking about? The Hispanic one?
Shawarma?
No, the
That's Arabic,
Vietnamese
though.
Oh, banh mi?
baguette sandwiches.
No, that's
Banh
why I was
mi.
Shawarmas are
confused.
based though.
Yeah.
When you said the Avengers, I was like, shawarma? Like,
I
shawarma's not.
thought he was talking about shawarma. I thought he was not talking about Vietnamese food anymore, and I was like, why are we talking about shawarma?
No, have you had banh mi, Lana? It's good.
Oh, I love banh mi. Yeah, we make it all the time.
Yeah, dude, I love it. I love it so much.
Central Asia has some really good foods. Like I got to try horse meat before. It was really interesting.
That sounds kind of wacky.
But wait, be honest. You're using the
Yeah.
word interesting for a reason, okay? What does that mean?
Why? I don't know.
No,
It was just it was an experience, and it was a delightful experience. I've never had it before. And there were some really unique foods I don't remember the names of that I got to try, but I remember distinctly getting to try horse meat for the first time in my life. And
The Swiss make amazing horse meat. I've had Swiss horse meat before.
Yeah.
It was really good.
I didn't even know it was
that,
horse meat until I was told after.
I
didn't know how
that
to feel
horse
about
meat-
it, but
I'm sorry.
yeah, no, you're good, man. Go ahead.
I assume that horse meat tastes like glue. That's all I was gonna say.
Oh my god, dude.
If you want me to, okay, so there's different types, but it was a really, it's an acquired taste, to be honest. I don't think most people would like it. But the type of horse meat I had, it was like very I don't actually know. I need to search up how to describe this. This is very weird. It's very tender. It's very chewy, and it has this like very hard kind of like hitting flavor. Definitely quite salty in a sense. Ooh, what can I compare it to? I really don't know. I'll have to think about this and come back to it.
Would you guys eat would you guys
IKEA
eat
meatballs?
human meat if you could prove, if whoever sold it to you could prove it was like consensual?
No, I'd
don't
want to be.
know.
That's not
eaten.
consent.
I'd probably sell myself, but I wouldn't want to eat a human.
Yeah, I don't know if
Like,
I'd
I
want to
think
eat
it
a
depends
human.
on
I feel
like the
weird
type
about
of
that.
human. I think like.
Oh wait, why?
really?
Like I
you'd
think the different.
you'd eat like a
Like I
black person, but
know
like
Homo
not a.
sapiens have different tastes than, for
Yeah.
example,
Black
the
people taste like
Neanderthals.
chicken.
But how are you gonna know how good they taste until you
Would
try
it be
it?
like a free range
I'm
grass
asking
fed
Lana, which
vegan?
type of
Like that
human? Like, are you
maybe.
talking Neanderthals, Homo sapiens? Which type?
Oh,
Well, probably the ones that exist now, considering all the other ones, to my knowledge, don't exist.
Or you saying
So-
so it's like a
I
mixed
thought-
kind of
yeah,
thing? Because
I
in
thought
the
you were
end,
talking-
it can be purebred kind of thing. Like
A purebred human? What does that mean?
Let me get that
as a person
Neanderthal
who,
meat.
like, we all have some percent Neanderthal. Like, there's some you could have a
I
modification,
don't.
but it's not any
I have
part
0%
Homo
Neanderthal.
sapien.
You're a human though. Wait, what?
Because
Yeah,
I mean, it will be on a factory farm instead.
Wait,
Wait,
a lot of
wait, hold on.
Even if some people are like some percent Neanderthal, it would still mean that you're human.
Like I
don't
think
Yeah, it's
if it's
still
like
like
split between, I think it
2%.
kind of dilutes the meat. I think.
It's like less than 1%, I think.
No,
actually.
even if it was,
Yeah.
even if you
I don't know if you could
Neanderthal
taste that, man.
100%, you'd still be human. Like, human isn't. It's human doesn't refer to Homo sapien. Okay, it's like I don't. Jesus.
Oh, not all humans have Neanderthal DNA, and if you want to separate people and who could possibly have Neanderthal DNA, you're pretty much only going to be eating like mid Africans because of like interbreeding in like North Africa and interbreeding in South Africa now. So like you only essentially want to eat black people, right? Or no?
But
Yeah.
there are other human
I love
subspecies,
that, Elm. That's
right?
funny.
Like there is there are other human subspecies.
It's not only Homo
besides
sapien and
Neanderthal.
Neanderthal. It's some other stuff. Like I know in Africa there are a lot of variants of that.
Dio, how many subspecies are there, and which ones are you? I'm just curious.
I don't know. I've never done a DNA test, but yeah, I know there's like different types that they're all extinct now. They don't exist like Neanderthal.
Yeah, but like, even if you have some percentage of whatever DNA, like
Yeah.
obviously you're still mostly like Homo sapien or whatever.
Sapien, yeah.
Yeah, Homo sapien.
Yeah, yeah, obviously. But at the same time, it doesn't make sense to say that like no matter what percentage of these other subspecies you had, that it would mean you weren't human, because human isn't. It's not really like referring to the particular subspecies of sapiens. It's like not particularly that scientific. It's kind of more a general term.
So my question is, what does a non-Homo sapien taste like? Like without all the gay,
Yo.
you know what I mean? Like what does a
Damn.
sapien taste like? You know what I'm saying?
I need to go make some dinner, so.
No, that was a joke.
Cool.
If that made you uncomfortable.
Cool
Don't
getting
fuck
to know
any
you
people
all.
without asking.
Yeah.
Cool getting to
Base
know
take.
you all.
I mean, in the end, it reminds me of the idea: are
Bye.
people are they given
Thanks,
consent
guys.
if they're on a
Bye,
factory
bye.
farm?